Hello and welcome. Today I'm making a video, hopefully it will be a quick video, and I want to make something on a garden theme. So something that maybe you would see in your back garden, some flowers, a lawn, some garden pots, very simple stepping stones, just the general garden ornaments. These are the ideas that are floating around in my head. I haven't made any firm decision on it yet, so I'm going to play around, work with a few layers, splash on some colour. So we'll get started. All you need to do this is a selection of brushes. You will need white paint, which is very, very important. Another selection of colours, any selection you please. Some acrylic paper or some good stiff paper, card or watercolour paper, whatever you have on hand, and a hairdryer is really, really important for drying it off because it can get very wet. So we'll get going and I will zoom in on this just to make sure that you're seeing this the painting, and I've got my palette underneath because I want to make sure that you're getting to see what's on the palette, what I'm mixing up as I go along. So we'll get started on this. I already have a few colours down. A piece of kitchen paper is also very handy before we get going, and we will put down a few colours very quickly. So as I always say, my aim in this is to get rid of the white on the page as soon as possible, because I find that glaring white is quite distracting. So yeah, I'm going to use a largish brush to start this, and I have some colours already down here, so I'm going to use them up because they've been out. So we put down the blue, get rid of some of that, and I've got a good bit of yellow here. Throw that on. It's a great colour for a garden. Down to the bottom, and it's going a bit green when I mix the yellow and the blue together. And I'm using this clip here on the left just to keep the whole thing together, because when it gets wet it tends to buckle, and I have it upright, but I will dry it off with the hairdryer if it gets very wet, and that should keep it in place. So it is the time of the year for getting out into the garden again. I know some people are already out. It's fantastic planting flowers, especially during the lockdown. What a pleasure to have a garden, or even if you just have a yard, and to be planting and messing around outdoors. It's just wonderful. So really, I'm just using up the paint on my palette. And I often do that at the end of the day. If I'm working and I've got leftover paint on my palette, I'll often just pick up a page or something like this, or a canvas that's lying around, a blank canvas, and just use up that that paint so it doesn't go to waste, as paint is expensive. And then you've got another painting started. Okay, here we go. And I'm just going to scratch in a little bit with the back of this brush. And that will give me kind of some grasses or scratchy lines. The impression of grasses underneath. If you can remember to do it, it's a great idea just to scratch. Use the back of your brush to scratch. Don't make a hole in the paper, but it just gives some interesting texture and adds to that overall feel of the garden, of the grass growing. So now I'm going to think about, what do I do next? I think I will add in some pink. I'm a fan of pinks and reds, I love them. And we'll use a different brush to get these down. So I put out a good bit of pink, but that can be mixed with the blue. I have a deep blue out there, and that could be mixed with the blue to make purples. So as this part of the painting, I am just really messing around. These could be flowers, but maybe not. Maybe they'll be trees. Maybe they'll be something else, a garden ornament. I'm just going to put them everywhere. And I'm using kind of a thinnish brush. I actually bought this brush, if you're living in Cork, I bought them in Woodies. It was a set of brushes and they're really useful. They've come in very useful. They were very, very cheap in price. Home decorating shop, often in home decorating shops you will pick up things like that are reasonable. So yeah, I'm getting some nice colours on there with that pink. It's lovely. I love it. And I just see a drip going down there, so I'm going to think about drips and get some going. Some of this blue should make a drip. I'm just going to get a good few drips going with these blues. You're probably wondering why I'm creating drips, but they're just good for making those horizontal lines that, you know, it could be the trunk of a tree, it could be the stem of a flower. It could turn into numerous things on the canvas. And I'm going to turn it in another direction just so we get some drips going in a second direction. So yeah, really in the mood for doing these. And yeah, it just helps me to get some lines down on that canvas without drawing lines. Because drawing in lines onto a canvas can often just destroy something. Because we tend to, my idea of a line is not usually the type of lines we see out in nature. I tend to do kind of contrived lines, whereas what I see outside, lines are much more random. I mean, sometimes I do things like this to create lines. I use the very bottom of my brush and twist it so that I'm not drawing a line, a solid line like this, like you would with a pen or a biro making contrived lines. I sometimes just hold the very end of the brush and just twirl the brush around to kind of make something more spontaneous, more natural, more nature, because nature is always just weaving and twisting and turning. And now I'm getting some nice effects here as I cross my brush over that drip. taking away, it's making a negative mark, which I really love. So I'm going to play around with that as well and just come in with my, actual fact, a dry brush would be the thing to do. Come in with a big dry brush. Let's see what happens. Taking too much off now, so I'm not happy with that. So we leave that dry brush. That didn't work so well, but I like what's happening down here. Sometimes dabbing is a good idea. It's going to dry up my canvas a bit, or my paper. And dabbing with the kitchen paper, and it spreads the paint around, and again kind of gives me more organic marks. Here I'm twisting it as well. Some people use sponges and stencils and they make great marks as well. There's all sorts of ways you can make texture, but I really like the texture that's coming out in this painting already. So I am going to dry it with my dryer just to make sure that it is cleaned off, and I'm going to just pause while I'm using the dryer. So we're back again, and really all I did was used 1 or 2 minutes with that dryer, and it really brought the whole thing. And I rubbed a few areas that had a lot of paint just with my finger and spread the paint around a little bit, and I've ended up with this kind of nice textured underlayer really for my painting, for my garden. And there is a kind of a grid appearing, which is quite nice as well. So we'll see where this goes. So at this point I'm coming in with my rigger brush, and I'm going to, this is the brush I'm always talking about with the big long, it's fantastic, big long brush up on the top of it there. I know it's out of focus, but you get the idea. So where are we going with this? I see a flower shape there, and I'm going to make that a flower. So that's going to be a little flower. And possibly another one there. It was really good to use this kind of grid, using the lines, the drip lines, because they've made like a grid which is giving me an idea for putting in flower pots in various places on the grid. So I'm putting in this flower pot, which may or may not stay in the painting. It's not in the center, it's slightly like, that's the center of the painting, so it's slightly off center, and that's good. We don't want things to be absolutely central in a painting. And I'm just seeing another shape here that could be another flower pot. And another one here that could be a flower. And this, I think, could be like, I'm seeing, and I didn't create this on purpose, but I am seeing marks coming up from this that could be, and look, there's a drip coming, so I'm going to let that drip come down. But you know, the way you can have trees planted, lemon trees and all sorts of amazing trees planted in flower pots. And I am going to allow that drip to come down there, but not the whole way. push it over to the side. There. Divert the drip. And it's causing another kind of drippy thing. Because often the tops of flower pots you can see the glazes on the tops of flower pots which have drips coming down from them. So it gives a nice effect using this on the top of, using the drip effects on top of flower pots. So there. I also think that there's a tree here now. Is it in the flower pot? Maybe not, but there is a tree here, definitely, in this garden. So it's a garden full of trees. So I'm putting in, there's a nice kind of shape of branches and a trunk there of a tree. And that one could be another tree. And over here there's a grid, and I'm going to use that to suggest the wall of the house in this garden, okay? And they could be kind of brick marks, or this, I don't know if you can see this these grid marks here that came from the drips. And this was another big flower here. Just got to bring it out a bit more. Kind of disappeared. And these flowers here could be, these three in the front could be, you know, they could be in another flower pot that we can't see, which is down below. And there's more of these marks here that could be, I'm just going around them, the drip marks, outlining them. Could be, I don't know, more garden pots or furniture. Or so I'm just using these shapes to see what I can create. Now, with that done, throw my brushes in there in case they get dry, keep them in the water. I'm going to bring in some, we don't have any contrast yet in this painting. It's all quite dark. So now I'm bringing in the light. So the light should be coming in here through that tree, the back of that trunk, that tree trunk. It's an opportunity for me to bring light into the painting, is around this area under the tree. And there also could be spaces up here through the tree where the light comes in. I'm going to bring out these flowers as pink because it just is my favorite color. Pink and reds I love. So we're going to bring those three flowers out as being strong in the foreground, and maybe another one underneath. Let me just see the hint of it. So some smaller ones kind of coming back from it, from those ones. Okay, and there is another one here. Right. putting in the hearts of the flowers. I don't know what these are. They may be pillars, but they're just shapes that appeared there in the background, and I just highlighted them using the drips. I just painted around the drips some sort of, I don't know, architectural feature. It doesn't really matter whether it's what it is. People can imagine what kind of an architectural feature. It could even be a lamp. You know, there could be a lamp up here. We'll see how that works out. And this was kind of the shape of maybe some brickwork. So more pillars here. Some brickwork going down along. That even could be the shape of a window there at the side. Once again, try and bring some light in around it. This pot here. Not sure if I'm going to keep that pot actually. It might just be nicer to leave the tree, because the pot is cutting the tree off, and the tree actually is just nice in its own right, and maybe I will bring around this tree, there could be a pathway. Which would lead the eye around, and you know, some stepping stones to bring the eye around here to the front of the painting. So yeah, I've taken out the central pot and I'm going to work on this pot. Could be just a concrete, could be, we'll see as it goes on what kind of a pot this is going to be. Is it going to be plain, or is it going to be a fancy pot? We'll see. There we go again. And the reason I took out that pot was I thought I needed to bring contrast and light into this painting. And it was just a simple way of taking it out and putting the light in around the silhouette of the tree. And I can also draw some of that light, this light that's coming behind the tree, and draw some of that around these stones. These stepping stones can be highlighting, you know, taking the shine, these ones brighter, and as we come around the garden, leading us around the garden. Unfortunately, this pot looks like it's floating in the air, so That may have to go as well. But I'm trying to make it sit into the garden now by putting a shadow under it. Trying to make it sit down, not float in midair. Okay. I'm getting carried away with these architectural features, but I just really saw them. Kind of, there are those happy accidents that just appeared. And I like them. And I think that flower is going to have to come out there. I'm not crazy about it. There we go. I haven't made up what kind of flowers in my mind. I haven't decided exactly what kind of flowers these are. So I'm just playing around. They do look a bit like roses at the moment. And sometimes I just play around and see what's going to work. Might change my mind later. But I think for now roses are working quite nicely in this little corner. And it needs yellow, so the yellow's coming back. I thought those roses were too big, so they're going back. I'm pushing them back, and we'll see what comes out of this corner. I don't think they're going to be roses. I think I'm going to try something like lupins or something tall, like this, that just kind of blends in to the corner and doesn't, those circular shapes just weren't doing anything for me. And I'm using a very small brush now. It's not a rigger, it's a nylon brush. It's small. It's just good for doing details. Still holding it at the bottom, but I like this brush. It just gives me nice details. It is a flat brush. It doesn't have a round head, but because it's so small, you don't notice it as having, you know, the marks do look quite rounded. We don't want to have these plants kind of, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the same height, as if the gardener came along and just clipped the heads off them. That's really important in painting, that things are like, I can see this is this height, and if I had all them that height, it would look terrible. So I need to make these uneven. And that type of thing adds a lot of interest into a painting. Maybe even making this kind of a twisting. This one, we don't want this one to be either steps of the stairs either. Maybe this one is a bit taller here. And that one is smaller there. So always in painting, it's really there is balance, but there also has to be, things have to be asymmetrical. Symmetry is, a certain amount of symmetry is good for balance, but not too much. So I think this is working. I think that's not looking like it's the same as this. If it did, I could, you know, change the height of it. I could bring it down, actually. I think that might be better, to bring the height of that down, like that. being quite fussy about the shape of this pot. And I want it to kind of look less obvious. Okay, and we'll put back that tree trunk into it there a bit more. I think there should be possibly some other things in that pot as well. Sometimes just at the end of the painting, this is quite wet, so I'm actually taking the white gesso straight out of the pot, because I know it's going to mix in with the colours underneath and it's not going to end up looking snow white. I really want to bring some contrast in here with this part of the painting. And there is some yellow in that white. The yellow stayed on my, I'm picking up the yellow from the grasses, and so really, yeah, I wanted to bring that contrast in. I think it's very important. And these architectural pieces should be picking up some of the white. These pillars should be picking up some of that light here and here. And the stepping stones, let's just bring some of them out, not make them very even. Flower pot. So I'm getting to the end of this painting, I think, and I'm just going to finish it off with just some more of this pink. I've got to just put a lighter shade of pink down on my palette. I had a quick look at it there, I paused the camera for a few seconds just to get up off my chair and have a look at it, because when you're sitting in the one position all the time, it's actually quite hard to see what you're doing. So I'm just adding a little bit of, just to give a bit of variety to those pink flowers there. Maybe I'll just add some white back in to the pink. And there we go. I think that is more or less it. As I say, often off camera afterwards, I just go back and add, I see a little few more extra things and I start playing around with it again. And really, the finishing touches can go on for days on a piece, because finishing touches and details are not the things you see when you've been focusing on something for a while. You need to stand back, you need to maybe move the painting into another area, into another room. I'm always taking my paintings up and downstairs and looking at them from various angles. I photograph them, and sometimes when I take the photograph I can see, oh, that's what's wrong with it, and I know I need to change some of those details. Just going to add, give the impression that there's more plants in this pot than just the tree there. And this basically is my garden scene, and it's quite, it does look like it's a garden in an old house or something, a classical garden. That kind of is the type of impression I'm getting from it. And there we go. I think it's done, more or less done. So I'm going to just bring it towards the camera just to let you see the pot on that side. The light coming through the trees, that bright light, the stepping stones, the shadows, but I still left some colour there. I didn't take out all that colour that was underneath, and these are kind of the architectural features over on the other side, and those flowers, whatever they are, they could even be heathers or just growing on the right hand side of the painting there. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I can see it's at an angle there. If I tilt it up it might be straighter. Hope you enjoyed it and that you'll join me again next week. I'll put my face into the camera, and don't forget, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and share, tell your friends, because it's great to share these out with as many people as possible when there's so much going into them. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next week. God bless and bye bye.